all the colors of the rainbow, all the voices of the wind, every dream that reaches out to find where love begins, every word of every story, and every star and every sky, every corner of creation lives to testify. Yeah. And for as long as I shall live, I will testify love. I'll be a witness in the silences when words are not enough. With every breath I take, I will give thanks to God above. And for as long as I shall live, I will testify love. From the mountains to the valleys, from the rivers to the sea. Put your hands together and clap along. This is fun. Every hand that reaches out, every hand that reaches out to offer peace, every simple act of mercy, and every step to kingdom come. Oh, all the hope in every heart will speak what love has done. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. I'll be a witness in the silences when words are not enough. With every breath I take, I will give thanks to God above. And for as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to love. I'll be a witness in the silences when words are not enough. With every breath I take, I will give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify to when words are not enough. With every breath I take, I will give thanks to God above. For as long as I shall live, I will testify and truth and joy and peace and life will testify to love. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. All right, how's everybody doing today? Good. Good, that's good. I'm excited. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Last time I told you that I was going to talk to you about 3 things, and so far we've only talked about 2. Now, before we get to that 3rd thing, I have some kind of special treat for you right now. It's going to be something fun and something that you've probably never experienced before. Anytime I go out and speak at various places, I like to get to know what goes on behind the scenes, the little things that you don't know about that may go on. You know, you got a lot of students here, a lot of teachers, and maybe you're wondering, what are they up to when I'm not looking? So I went undercover. Hidden cameras and everything. No, I went undercover, and I exposed some real shocking truths. And I think you're going to be really shocked by what I'm about to share with you. I decided first to start out with a teacher. And so this morning I went to Mr. Young's house. I said to him, Mr. Young, I said, how are you feeling about today? Are you ready for work today? And this is what he said. Today I don't feel like doing anything. Well, then I went on. I went to Mrs. Ramsey's house. I thought I should get an interview with the principal. I couldn't get one when I got there because she was in the house and she seemed very upset about something. Her husband was trying to convince her that she needed to get ready to go. He kept saying, it's time to go. You got to go to work. Let's get going. And this is what she had to say to that. And I am telling you, I'm not going. Well, he finally convinced her to leave, but then all of a sudden she came running back into the house, went into the bedroom, and slammed the door. He said to her, "What are you doing in the bedroom?" He said, "You had your outfit all, everything was ready to go. What could you possibly be doing in there?" And she said, "I am changing." Well, I left, and I went on to school, and I thought I'd interview some students. So first I found Michael Seacrest. How you doing, Mike? Hey, I said, "Michael, what are your ambitions for life? What would you like to be after you graduate high school?" And Michael said, "I want to be a billionaire so freaking bad." Well, I was still on this Mrs. Ramsey kick, and I thought I'd interview some students. So I asked Caitlin Shoemaker, I said, "Caitlin," I said, "what do you think about Mrs. Ramsey?" I said, "More specifically, how long do you think she should be allowed to be principal here?" And Caitlin said, but I said, "Well, it can't be all good." I said, "What happens when she gets angry? What happens when she gets mad at people? What is she like then?" And a person who wishes to remain nameless said this. Well, I started walking on, and I passed the guidance office where Mrs. Skilling was in the office with a student, and I didn't know who it was, but he was telling her his troubles. He said, "I'm just a poor boy, nobody loves me." I finally found out who it was, though, whenever I heard her say, "David, you're the snowball king, everybody loves you." And that must have made him feel better. So I walked on to Mrs. Volbrecht's class. I thought, I need to check up on my wife, you know, see if she's beating up too many people in calculus. And they were complaining about a really, really hard calculus problem. They said, "I don't think we're ever going to be able to figure this thing out." Well, she had absolutely no sympathy for them. This is what she said. "What doesn't kill you makes you strong." So I walked on to Mrs. Gelvin's room, where the students were protesting. They said, "Please let us have an extension. We don't want to take this test today. We want you to reschedule the test for next week." And she just would not give in. She said, well, they said to her, "But can't we at least have a night of no homework then? Could you please just give us one night of no homework?" And she finally relented by saying, well, I walked on. I thought, I still need to get this interview with Mrs. Ramsey. And I almost had her cornered as she was walking into Mr. Laux' office, you know, the new superintendent. We don't know much about Mr. Laux yet. I thought I'd interview both of them until I heard him say something that made me think I better leave. See, when Mrs. Ramsey walked into the office, this is what I overheard Mr. Laux say. "Hey, hey, baby." And I got to get it together. I don't have time to waste on laughing. And I thought, well, I better just move on right now. So I went to the faculty room where the teachers were having lunch, and I saw a group of teachers who seemed to be really involved in a secret conversation. And I said to one of them, I said, "You know, look, I have to know everything that goes on around this place. What are you talking about so secretively?" And finally, one of the teachers said to me, I don't know what went on that night, but anyway, other interesting things happened in the faculty room too. Did you know they have entertainment in there during lunch? Word on the street is Mr. Gelvin suggested that the cheerleaders come in and entertain them, but that kind of backfired whenever the cheerleaders made up this cheer about Mr. Gelvin. Needless to say, they won't be back in the faculty room again anytime soon. So I thought, well, maybe this would be as good a time as any to interview Mr. Gelvin. He's been here for a long time. I said, "Mr. Gelvin, what is the biggest problem you have ever faced while teaching at Forbes Road?" And he said, "Everybody talks too much." I said, "Now come on." I said, "My job is to motivate these students. I got to make these kids feel good about themselves." I said, "What do you do? What do you say to yourself? Is there anything you tell yourself at the end of the day that makes you feel good, that represents how you feel about yourself?" And this was his response. "I'm sexy and I know it." And that was the end of the interview. I decided it was all downhill from there. So that was it. Ladies and gentlemen, nice round of applause for everybody that we beat up so viciously there in that little skit. Well, I suppose now we need to get serious. Or maybe not, but we'll go ahead anyway. Because I have that one last thing I want to talk to you about. Remember, we were talking about changing the world and worthiness and how the first step in changing the world is believing that you can. And I have two stories to tell you about people that I look up to who have changed the world. The first one is Walt Disney. How many of you have been to Disney World? Or you've watched Disney movies? Yeah? Yep. You know, when we hear the name Walt Disney, we think about that stuff right away, right? I mean, that's what comes to mind. Disney's big empire. I want to remind you that at one time, the name Walt Disney didn't mean much of anything to anybody. He wasn't born a prince or a king. He didn't come from a wealthy upbringing. He didn't have people handing him money left and right. No, when Walt Disney wanted to do something, he had to pursue his dreams, and he had to work hard for them. He didn't come from a great, wealthy upbringing. And as a matter of fact, he had a lot of struggles. The Disney company, as we know it now, was not the first attempt. He had several failed attempts. As a matter of fact, Disney's first movie, Snow White, almost didn't make it because partway through the filming, they ran out of money. Now, some people would have just taken this as a sign to just give up and say, you know, the world isn't ready for animated movies and I need to just get a normal job and not rock the boat so much. But not Walt Disney. He believed that he had a vision and a dream that he needed to pursue. So he went to banks and he started asking them to lend him money. And when they wouldn't, he actually took in his film reels and he said, you need to watch this and see why it deserves an ending. And of course, eventually, a bank went for it and lent him the money so that he was able to complete the movie. Disney had some other struggles along the way too, but he never gave up. He always persevered because he believed it was his vision and his dream that he had to see through. And of course, the rest is history. He is someone who has changed the world. The next person I want to talk about is Steve Jobs. How many people have an iPhone or an iPad? Or you know somebody who does, right? Yeah. Steve Jobs, the late CEO of Apple. Guess what? There was a time when the name Steve Jobs didn't mean anything. There was a time when the name Steve Jobs meant the adopted son of a mechanic. There was a time when the name Steve Jobs meant college dropout who had no idea what he wanted to do with his life. But he finally got that dream, got that vision, and he saw it through, and Apple was created. But it wasn't all good, because guess what? I don't have time to explain the details of why, but soon after that, Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. How do you get fired from a company you created? But it really happened. And as Steve Jobs himself said, he was out, and in a very public way. Now again, he could have taken this as a sign that it was time to just give up, calm down a little bit, get a simple job, something that will guarantee to put food on the table, not rock the boat so much. But again, he didn't do that because he believed he had a dream that he had to fulfill. Eventually, he started a little computer company called Next and an animation studio called Pixar, which you might have heard of. Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Cars. Well, through a series of events, Disney bought Pixar and Apple bought Next, which put Steve Jobs back at his own company. His troubles weren't over yet, though, because Apple was on the brink of death as a company. He still had to turn this company around. He made a lot of decisions that angered a lot of people and frustrated people, but he stuck to his dream, and of course, once again, the rest is history, and he has changed the world. What are the qualities that these people have that make them unique, that have made them able to change the world? Because it occurs to me that there are not a lot of people interested in changing the world, right? You look at what people do, what they say, they're not interested in changing the world, they're only interested in surviving it for just another day, and they think that's doing something. Well, guess what? We've got serious problems in this world, and I believe we need serious people to solve them. What are the qualities that it takes? Two things come to mind. The first thing is a love for what you're doing and a belief in it. And the second thing is an unrelenting sense of focus and determination. Let's talk about the first one because it's easy.